Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone. And now here's your host and CEO of RU Global Impact, Deborah Rue.
Hello, everyone. This is Human Potential at Work, and my name is Deborah Rue. I'm the CEO of RU Global Impact, and I'm the chairman and co-founder of Billion Strong, an identity organization that's going to bring the 1.3 billion people with disabilities together to celebrate all that we bring to society. My guest today is Rosemarie Rossetti. She's a Ph.D. and she's somebody that I've been tracking her work for many years. She's done some really incredible things. She focuses on universal design and making sure homes are fully accessible. And she's very impressive. So Rosemarie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Deborah.
Rosemarie, do you mind giving the audience a little background about how you got into this field?
It was purely by accident, literally. On June 13th, 1998, my husband and I were celebrating our third wedding anniversary. We went on a bicycle ride. It was a beautiful Saturday, no wind, no rain, no threat of storm, when suddenly my husband heard what he thought was a gunshot. It wasn't a gunshot at all. It was the snap of an 80-foot tall tree, and instantly I was crushed by a 7,000-pound tree and paralyzed from the waist down. So literally life changed in an instant. I'm very lucky to be alive. And my idea of universal design, I had no idea. I've never heard of it. But coming home from the hospital in a wheelchair for the first time was a rude awakening to understand the complexity of getting in a house that had steps, of rolling on carpet that was thick, of doors that had to come off, of furniture that had to be removed, of my lack of independence and my frustration. It was way beyond what I could handle. The accident was one thing, and the pain and the recovery, but then coming home, not being able to work at home or function at home, and having a caregiver there, that was too much for me.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, Rosemarie, because I was just talking to another gentleman. His name is Yuval, and he is in Israel, and he said similar things. He got in a really bad helicopter crash, and it was bad enough that he was dealing with this, and he became a quadriplegic, but then he had to deal with society totally being inaccessible to him and pretty much being told he didn't matter anymore and he could add no value. And why do we do this to people? It is hard enough that you had to walk this path of this tree coming down, and it's really wrong what we do to people. It's just so wrong. And then on top of it, and we've talked about this before, we're an aging society, so more and more people are aging into disabilities, and that's not a threat, it's just a reality. And once again, being treated like they don't matter, they add no value, and it's just very short-sighted. And I know this is what your work is all about, but it makes me sad for people that we treat them that way. So I know you've been doing this for a while, but tell us more about the journey of how you started taking control of your life again.
And absolutely, that is what I did, literally, to take charge of my life, to take it back. And that's actually the title of my book that I wrote while I was recovering, is Take Back Your Life. And a part of that was the home environment. My husband and I wondered, would I be able to walk again? What would the injury result in? And so we waited a while to see if I would be walking again. After 2 years of physical therapy, it wasn't happening. So the resolution was in 2004 to hire an architect and start working on a design that would work for us. We had looked at homes for sale in the community. We had met with builders to look at model homes, and nothing was out there. We couldn't find any home that was going to meet our needs, from the aspect of accessibility, from the location where we wanted to live in Columbus, Ohio, and all the other parameters in terms of finances. So the architect began in earnest designing a home. And then in 2005, a group of mastermind members, fellow speakers and consultants, gave Mark and I the idea to make it a national demonstration home and garden. So the project became much bigger, a very aggressive project to create over 200 sponsors, corporations that partnered with us to give us products and services. And then the architect and the interior design team that was all over the country. My husband and I decided to be the general contractors. And we had never built a house before. And believe me, Deborah, we will never build another one.
Yeah.
This project was Herculean. We did not know what we needed to know, even though we had construction managers and architects, interior designers, everybody on the team. We still were in charge of the financing and the scheduling. Finally, we broke ground in 2009, and in 32 months later, we had the ability to say we can now move into our home. Then for the next 2 years, we worked on finishing the lower level and finishing the landscape. So we opened to the public in 2014. Looking back, we hired the architect 2004. It didn't open to the public for 10 more years. That was our journey. It was an amazing journey with the persistence and dogged determination. Mark and I just never gave up and had a whole host of hundreds of volunteers and lots of sponsors behind us.
And you learned a lot. And then what you did was you took that and you applied it to the work that you do now. And it's hard to believe, maybe we can say we didn't know then, but this is still happening. Most homes are not accessible. And this happens to people all the time. And this is in the United States. And unfortunately, it gets worse when you go outside the United States often. So how did you take what you applied and turn it into a business?
We started by the photographs of the construction, both video and still photos, so that we'd have a full photo journal. We also started having tours for the building industry and the design industry during construction. And we would bring our sponsors, our manufacturers on board to help them understand the phases of construction and design. We've had lots of tours after construction. While we've been living here, we've had over 3,200 people physically in our home as a tour. We also got Google involved for the video and the virtual tour. So anyone in the world can see our home on our website at udll.com and take a tour anytime. I started writing articles. I started a journal. I wrote a book, the Universal Design Toolkit. I started reaching out to the design community and doing webinars and going to their national conference and writing monthly articles. I was just into this. I had a profession before as a speaker and a trainer and a writer and a consultant, and I switched my gear from presentation skill training and train the trainer to now about focusing on home design.
You know, Rosemary, I remember there was a show, and I think you were involved with it. I forget what it's called now, but they would go into a home and they would rebuild it, and they would put a big bus in front of the house. And then when they were doing the reveal, they would move the bus. And I know they took I believe you were involved in that, right?
I tried. That was Extreme Home
right.
Makeover. I have contacted them when they were in production, trying to be a consultant and be on the scene, but I never got anyone's attention.
Too bad, because you would have added so much value. I loved that show. I thought it was so interesting. But we still see that homes aren't accessible. They're not accessible, and you see that often when somebody's trying to make it accessible, it's not good design. It's very ugly, and maybe it's functional, but it's ugly and not safe. And so what suggestions do you have with how we can change things? First of all, go and look at the tour of your home, because I also would wonder, Rosemary, that as they were designing things that worked for you, it works for other people that might not have the disabilities. And I know there were inventions and innovative design ideas. What things like that did y'all learn from the project?
Well, if I were to describe my husband, Mark Later, he is 6'4". So I am 4'1" from a seated position. So we are the perfect couple to showcase universal design. So the house had to work for Mark and me. And as we've had these tours, the people who are here comment all the time, oh my gosh, I wish I had. And then they'd fill
Right.
in the blank. Oh, this is such a smart design. Why don't more builders do this? So indeed, universal design is for everyone. It's not just for people in wheelchairs and have a disability. So we are the show couple for demonstrating both short and tall, disabled and not disabled at this point. And we intend to stay here for the rest of our lives. Who knows what will happen as we
Right,
age in
right.
place?
Yeah, and I know the baby boomers, there's 70 million plus baby boomers, all over the age now, I think 57. And we want to age in place. We want to age in place. That's why Rosemarie's work is just so important. But why I would think all of the designers from around the United States and all over the world would want to come and see what y'all have done. Do you see that more and more people are finding about the work and really following your lead? And also you're a consultant that can help them build their with all kind of different things. But have you, what's happened during the pandemic has, I would assume, has slowed down, but where are you now with it, with people seeing what you've done?
We
Yeah,
had to stop
right,
tours,
right.
obviously, but that doesn't mean we've stopped. We've been doing so many virtual
Oh,
programs
good.
and webinars for credit for architects and interior designers. I've still been writing. In fact, today I just wrote a new article for the National Aging in
Yeah.
Place Council. And in July, I'm going to be doing a national webinar for them. AARP has an article in writing right now. The writer just emailed me today asking for more information about how COVID has impacted aging in place and universal design. So she has a new article coming out on AARP's website as soon as she finishes it. So we're continuing to help her build that article. So I'm reaching out to a lot of national associations that focus on the aging population. I'm also working on universal design in the workplace, as many corporations are now sending their employees back to the office with the option of coming in full-time or part-time. So it's time not only to clean the office since it's been empty for so long, it's time to make it over and make it more inclusive, to be better for people of all abilities to come to work, to have a attraction factor as they're looking for new people and to retain those that they have. I work on the Global Universal Design Commission on their board of directors, and we certify corporations and their spaces for
Oh, good,
universal
good. And
design.
for the audience, that most of the US audience are going to know that AARP, what it is, but for those of you outside the US, it is the American Association of Retired Persons. And it's a really big, powerful organization in the United States, supporting people like me that are over a certain age. So they're a very important organization. So I know you have a universal design living laboratory as your home. Will you tell us just a little bit more about?
Well, it's a beautiful home. I'm privileged to live here. During COVID, I'm even more privileged that I'm here all the time, just starting to get out into the neighborhood and going to restaurants. And we have some airline tickets that have been on hold for a while we're finally going to use. But the home is 3,500 square feet. It has 4 bedrooms. 2 of them are used as home offices, and that my husband and I are both working on our business together at home. He's in one corner of the home, and you're looking at the screen right now in my home office. We have an acre and a half. We have lots of gardens. They're very accessible. I'm also a horticulturist, and so that was very important to me that the gardens would be accessible for me with a lot of container gardens. We have a lower level, and it's another 3,500 square feet, and we have a full classroom there, as well as now our exercise room. Since COVID hit, we had to expand our exercise equipment at home. And we have a full bath in that lower level. So it could be turned into another apartment for caregivers should
Wow,
the
that's
need
amazing.
arise.
And it is really beautiful. I've looked at it, the video. So I highly recommend everybody to look at the video. And if you're a designer or an architect, you should be talking to Rosemarie. She can teach you so many things. And universal design does not have to be ugly. If you do it right, it should be beautiful and functional, as Rosemarie said, for everybody in the household. So I love the point that you made that you're 4'1" seated and your husband is 6'4", because that right there is dramatic. So that's very cool. What can we do to help you? What can we do? How can corporations help you? How can individuals help you? Can we do to help your work?
Include me in your project. I'd love to support the work of other people. So if they have a design project and would like Mark and I involved with that from the very beginning, we do a lot of plan reviews, both for businesses as well as apartments and condominiums and private residents. So please reach out to
Yeah,
us
and
as
you know what? I wanted to
consultants.
say this. I thought about this earlier, but I know a senior executive at Amazon that moved from the West Coast to the East Coast to Washington, D.C., our capital. She looked at 68 different houses and apartments, and none of them were accessible. One of them said that they were ADA compliant, but it was really weird because the only bathroom in this flat was on the second floor. So she's like, how is this ADA compliant? How do I go to the bathroom? And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. First of all, stop saying you're ADA compliant. You're not. But that is our nation's capital in the United States. That is chilling. So it's, even though you've made a lot of progress, we have a lot of work to do. It's just, and are you seeing that, Rosemarie, or is it just?
We hear that time and time again. What's it going to take to look at design from designing for all and make these homes work from the very beginning rather than tearing them up later? It's social sustainability, to be able to have living environments that sustain us for our lifetime rather than having to remodel them or having to move because now your
Right.
situation has changed. We're seeing more multi-generational households, and it's more critical now than it was in the past before COVID. So what's it going to take? It's
I
going to
agree.
take some policy changes. It's not about the marketplace anymore, that the market is going to drive the industry. The need has been out there for years, and we've got to impact the design and building community. So if they had restrictions, if they had limitations where they were told you can't be building the same houses the way you were before, they now must apply to the new building standard. So let's do some policy changes on a national basis to change the building standards, at least to have the home be able to be entered with one no-step entrance with 36-inch doors throughout interior and exterior, and at least one full bathroom and bedroom on that first floor. So we have the stick approach or the carrot approach in terms of motivation. I think the stick approach
I
works
agree.
better to
Sadly, I
make it
agree.
happen.
Now, we do have standards in the United States. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I believe is 31 years. And so, do you feel that the standards, that the regulations inside the ADA are meeting the needs? Because it doesn't seem to be.
Well, Deborah, the ADA is not in effect in any way in single-family
Wow, I did
residential
not
homes,
realize that.
period.
That's ridiculous. That's such a bad oversight. So you're right. And I know that we've updated that to include websites and accessibility. Why are we not doing it for our homes where we live? Especially when we're aging. So I did not
You're
realize
right.
that because I hear architects saying to me, oh, yeah, we follow the ADA, but they still are building homes that are not accessible to human beings, humans. And that's just sad because we are humans, we're biological beings, and sometimes my back hurts. There's so many reasons why we all benefit from universal design. Not to mention innovation. And also remember, we have designers with disabilities as well. And those are I know a wonderful woman in Texas. And Rosemarie's a wonderful example as well. So you really should be using the community, We want you to use the community. We would like you to show preferential treatment to our community when you're getting advice from consultants, in my humble opinion. I'm sure you feel the same way, Rosemarie, because you know your needs better than I do.
Yeah, and I've got lived experience from living in the home prior to the accident, then moving to an apartment for 18 months while this home was under construction that was not ADA compliant. And then suddenly leaving the apartment and coming to the new home and going, free at last, free at last. I can move anywhere in the house and get there and take a shower independently and cook without having my husband in the kitchen helping me, and reaching things and going outside any door of the house and leaving the house in my van without asking someone to help me get out of the house. So those things are very important for human-centered design, and that's what inclusion is all about. So builders, architects, designers, you've got to make some changes. Quit building the
Yeah, it's
same
not
way
working for the
all the
humans
time.
in the room. It's ridiculous. And be innovative. We want our designers to be innovative. Rosemarie, how has technology helped these conversations? Because I know we talk about smart homes, smart speakers, smart devices, and there's a lot of these smart devices that allow us to age more successfully in place.
There sure are. There's lots of controls out there that people who don't have the use of their hands and their arms can use their voice. And they were created, they're wonderful. The general population has embraced them with voice control commands to open and close your draperies, to turn on lights, or to set scenes automatically. Motion sensors are a wonderful, simple innovation to come into a room and the lights are on instead of fumbling around to figure out where the light switch is. And they're energy saving, so the light will go off when you leave. So the technology is really advanced and embraced the general population. When you think back in terms of many decades ago, when the garage door was not automated with a push of a button. The genesis of the design of an automatic garage door opener was because of a need for people with disabilities that couldn't open their garage door to get out. So a lot of these innovations stem from assisted technology that then makes it
I agree,
into the
and
general
I don't see
population.
enough of those being incorporated into home design either, which is another reason why I would recommend that you reach out to Rosemarie for support, because there's so many ways that we can make home smart and usable for human beings. But Rosemarie, will you tell the audience how they can find out more about your work? I know you did mention a URL before, but are you on social media, which I know you are, but I just want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you. And I really recommend getting in touch with her, because we got to do better. We got to do better than we're doing right now.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. There's two simple websites. The first one is the house, the Universal Design Living Laboratory, and that's just udll.com, just the initials, udll.com. You can take the virtual tour, you can take the video tour, you can purchase a copy of the Universal Design Toolkit, you can get a free chapter with the universal design features of our home, room by room, and there's over 100 articles. So it's a rich resource of information about universal design living. The second one is my personal business website, Rossetti Enterprises. And that one is just rosemariespeaks.com. rosemariespeaks.com. To get me by email, it's just rosemary@rosemariespeaks.com. So if you're looking for a speaker at a conference, I'd be happy to entertain either a conversation now or when the time is right. I am now doing in-person programs as well as virtual, as well as hybrids. So I've got tickets already for one in September that will be live and virtual. So they're starting this fall for me. I'll actually be at the Universal Design Summit September, October in St. Louis, speaking at their national conference. So contact me that way. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. You can find my information off of my websites with direct links to my social media. I have a YouTube channel, lots of videos, as well as videos on both of my main websites. I think the
Yes.
best one would be my TEDx video. I encourage anyone to understand the components of what lessons I learned after that accident and how this house came to be. So that TEDx is a nice way to get an introduction
And you're an
to
excellent
me
speaker, so
speaking
I
about
highly
the
recommend
house.
you. And once again, if you're having conversations, smart cities, smart homes, and you're not talking about these topics that Rosemarie's saying, it's not smart because it's not inclusive. It's not accessible to us. And we're 1.3 billion, and I think those numbers are very low. I think it's much higher than that. So let's design for humans. And Rosemary's happy to help you with that. So thanks for being on the show today, Rosemarie. I really appreciate your work. I've been following your work for, gosh, we've known each other for years. We've known about each other's work. So I'm glad you finally came on air. So thank you for the work you do. And I'm going to actually go back out to udll.com. And only because I looked at it years ago, but I want to refresh my memory. I'm going to go back out and take a look again. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my passion about
Yes, I
designing
agree.
homes
That
that make
designing
life
homes that
easier.
work for humans, please. So thanks to the audience. Once again, check out her living laboratory. It's udll.com. So thanks, Rosemarie. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work, brought to you by Rue Global Impact. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your audio. To learn more about Rue Global Impact and the services we provide, visit rueglobal.com. To learn more about how you can become a sponsor of Human Potential at Work, email David at rueglobal.com. That's David at rueglobal.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back next time with a new episode.